This is a scary story about the cabinet. Every family in every town in every country has one. It's a cabinet not particularly odd or out of place. The paint was peeling a bit on the corners and the knob was a bit loose. The inside smelled like dust and the paint wasn't the same as the kitchen walls. Once, a long time ago, you hid inside this cabinet during a game of hide and seek. No one told you it doesn't open back into your reality. Don't worry, you can't tell the difference. But everyone misses you.
What is a seemingly normal photo that has a disturbing backstory? This photo of Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka at their wedding at the same time one of their victims was discovered. This photo, titled Eyes of Hate, a candid photograph of Goebbels after he finds out his photographer was Jewish, 1933. If looks could kill. This is the photo Kurt Diemberger took after his companion, the illustrious alpinist Hermann Buhl, fell into the abyss on the Himalayan mountain Chongalisa. Buhl was walking behind Diemberger and momentarily left the trail, after which he fell through an overhanging cornice. He remains in the ice. This image of politician Bud Dwyer opening an envelope. He was holding a televised press conference about a scandal he was being accused of when the envelope was delivered to him during the press conference. He'd continue by opening the envelope and revealing a handgun that he promptly put in his mouth, killing himself live on national television. This is one of the primary reasons many live news reports are preempted by a few minutes. Just in case.
This is why you should never let someone borrow your phone charger. Once there was a young woman named Betty who was home alone when she heard a knock at her door. She opened it and saw a young man standing there. He said his car broke down and his phone battery ran out, so he needed to borrow a charger. Wanting to help, Betty let him in and made him tea while his phone charged. This would be a devastating mistake because soon things started getting suspicious. They were chatting on the couch when the man brought up that he recently got into filmmaking and it was his dream to make his own movie. No special effects, no camera tricks, he wanted to make everything seem real. But he didn't want to make any kind of movie. He wanted to make his own horror movie. Betty started feeling uncomfortable, so she hinted that she wanted to go to bed soon. Then, as she stood up from the couch, she noticed something she didn't see before. And this changed everything. Underneath the man's jacket was a glowing red light, the red light of a camera that was recording. This is why you should never let someone borrow your phone charger. Once there was a young woman named Betty who was home alone when she heard a knock at her door. She opened it and saw a young man standing there. He said his car broke down and his phone battery ran out, so he needed to borrow a charger. Wanting to help, Betty let him in and made him tea while his phone charged. This would be a devastating mistake because soon things started getting suspicious. They were chatting on the couch when the man brought up that he recently got into filmmaking and it was his dream to make his own movie. No special effects, no camera tricks, he wanted to make everything seem real. But he didn't want to make any kind of movie. He wanted to make his own horror movie. Betty started feeling uncomfortable, so she hinted that she wanted to go to bed soon. Then, as she stood up from the couch, she noticed something she didn't see before. And this changed everything. Underneath the man's jacket was a glowing red light, the red light of a camera that was recording. This is how you survive the other mother from Coraline. Imagine you move into a new house only to find a secret magical door that leads to a parallel universe, where your other mother and other father want to keep you in this seemingly perfect world forever by sewing buttons in your eyes. Only your other mother is actually a spider demon that feeds on the souls of children. Obviously, the easiest way to survive is to not go through the door again before the other mother can kidnap your real parents. Or make up an excuse and convince your family to move out immediately. You can also tell them the truth at the risk of sounding insane. But if it's too late for any of that, you can try to trick the other mother. Since the ghost children said even if you win, she'll never let you leave, instead of guessing correctly where she hid your real parents, trick her by guessing that they're behind the door so she reveals where she kept the key. Then when the door is unlocked, create a distraction and escape. In the movie, Coraline did this by throwing the cat. Let me know which character I should do next and follow for more. If you ever lose your phone, don't do what she did. One day Sophia came home late from work and realized she didn't have her phone with her. Thinking she must have lost it, she decided to call herself from her home phone, not knowing this would lead to something terrifying. The phone rang for a long time, then someone picked it up. What a relief, Sophia thought to herself. I must have dropped it and a kind stranger found it. Hello, Sophia said, but the person on the other end didn't reply. Can you hear me? Sophia said again. But all she heard was someone heavily breathing on the other end. Then whoever picked up the phone finally said in a low voice, "I hear you." Then they hung up. Things only get weirder from here because Sophia kept calling, desperate to find her phone. But after getting no response for a while, she gave up and decided to get ready for bed. And this is when everything went wrong. As she walked upstairs to her bedroom, what she saw terrified her. On her nightstand was her phone, and it was on silent.
This man loved his wife so much that he stayed with her even after death. Jonathan Reed was devoted to his wife Mary. When she died in 1893, he bought a mausoleum in Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn. Jonathan then furnished the mausoleum like a fancy living room. It had paintings, an oil stove, photos, their pet parrot, and her half-finished knitting. He would enter the tomb and say, "Good morning, Mary. I've come to sit with you," and remain in the tomb all day, talking to Mary, dining with her, and reading to her. For over 10 years, he never missed a day visiting his wife. In 1905, he was found on the mausoleum's floor with his arms outstretched towards Mary. He had died of a stroke and was laid to rest beside his wife. The tomb was finally locked and the key has since disappeared.
These are some of my favourite infamous last words from death row criminals. Erskine Childers was found guilty of the illegal possession of a firearm, and so when he was sentenced to death, the judge chose an execution method that mirrored his crime. He was to be shot to death by a firing squad, and his last words were actually to those men that would be killing him. He said, "Take a step forward, lads. It'll be easier that way." James Edward Smith was handed the death penalty for committing a robbery and murder, but outside of that, he was very known to be into black magic and voodoo, and even claimed to have sacrificed a child. He actually asked prison staff if his last meal could be this specific kind of dirt. Obviously they said no, they gave him a yogurt instead. His exact last words weren't officially recorded, but the prison guards said that he promised his ghost would haunt that prison for the next 300 years, and there was nothing they could do about it. Johnny Garrett was sentenced to death in the 1980s for supposedly killing a nun. Just a side note, a lot of people think he was actually falsely accused, and so he was killed for no reason. But either way, Johnny Garrett's last words before he was executed were, "I'd like to thank my family for loving me and taking care of me, and the rest of the world can kiss my..."
This is why you should never let anyone take your eyes out. Last week, a young man was driving through an old town when he noticed something strange. Everyone was wearing sunglasses. He stopped his car to ask about it, but they grabbed the man, dragged him out of his car, and removed his eyeballs with an ice cream scooper. After that, a young woman took out some type of spider creature and placed it inside his empty eye sockets. The spider burrowed deep inside his skull, and then the woman put back the man's eyeballs to hide it. He doesn't know what the spider wants, but he can feel it moving around behind his eyes to this day, and part of him worries it might even be laying eggs.
Have you ever heard of the creepy reason why Casper the ghost died? So obviously Casper is a child ghost, which means something tragic must have happened to him in real life that caused him to die. So the story of his death takes place in the 1800s. It starts off that Casper's mom passed away giving birth to him, leaving him to be raised by his father. And apparently his father was a really good man and always tried to make his son happy. One Christmas, Casper begged for a sled and his father gave him one and allowed him to go sledding one day. But unfortunately, Casper caught pneumonia and died soon after. But instead of moving on to the afterlife, he stuck around, not wanting his father to be all alone. So this prompted his father to come up with this artificial body that Casper can go and inhabit. But unfortunately, his father was taken to an asylum before he could test the contraption out and was never seen again. So Casper was left all by himself in the house without a mother or a father.
The scariest true story you will ever hear. A junior in high school was home alone working on a paper while his parents were out having dinner. All night he sat at his desk with his back facing the door and noise-cancelling headphones on. At about 11 p.m. he takes his headphones off at the same time his parents get home, and he hears his mum shout, "Hey Adrian, what happened?" Confused, he runs downstairs and sees instantly what she's talking about. There are muddy footprints all over the floor. He tells his parents that he didn't leave his desk all night, and they realise that someone must have broken in. But the scary thing is, there's no footsteps leaving the house. Worried that the intruder is still in the house, they call the police and hide in a bathroom. The police arrive and don't find anyone in the house, but they do find a chilling discovery upstairs. The police bring them to the kid's bedroom door, which had been open all night, and show them a message that has been written in Sharpie. This is the actual transcript of what was written on the kid's door, which means for 2 hours, someone was standing in his doorway staring at him.